Dusty May join us. Dusty, how are you, sir?
Good, Jim. How are you?
Buddy, great. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy. Basketball season right about to start for you guys, so I know you're super busy, and I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be on with us.
Jim, it's great to be on.
How are you? First of all, congratulations again off of your success last year. Incredible run. And that shows to me. We had Dan Dockage on a little bit, but the teaching all the way down, Dusty was a basketball manager but was always learning. Do you have 4 years of notebooks like the players do?
I have a couple of years. Yeah. We took notes every day and even a couple friends, we have kind of shared notes and have a compilation and stuff. So yeah, I've got a bunch of random notebooks and things like that. It's interesting to look back at it now.
And I've never asked this question of any former manager. Did he work with the managers at any time? Was there conversations about things from a coaching standpoint or anything like that? Or was it?
I wouldn't say he didn't exactly talk strategy to us, but he would ask us questions. He would always try to stimulate thought with whoever he was with. There is one funny story. William Gladness, rest his soul. I was assigned to be the guy that was, anytime he wanted to go get shots, I had to be there for him. And Will had a great left shoulder jump hook. And one night we're in there and he's shooting, and me being a 19 or 20-year-old manager, I was going to show him the up and under move. And Coach Knight walked through and basically gave me, "Hey, Rusty Dusty, that's why we have coaches. Why don't you go back to rebounding the ball and shut up," or something that, in jokingly fashion. So, our job was to soak in information, to try to fit in wherever we could and do all the dirty work and just try to make the machine run a little smoother.
What was it that you were able, because as a manager, you guys are super busy. You probably work harder than the guys on the basketball team because you have so many different responsibilities running around constantly. How were you able to soak in and soak up what was being taught, what was going on?
Well, Jim, the times have changed. Back then, there was no video coordinators, there were no GAs, there were no administrative assistants, there were no director of basketball operations. So basketball staffs, Coach Knight had 3 assistant coaches, and he had Tim Garl, who handled travel, and even Tim did the weight program a couple of the years, and he was the trainer, and he was basically the business manager of the program. So the hierarchy of managers, your freshman year, you're doing managerial work, and then sophomore year, you start going in a different direction, whether it's the video room, whether it's you're one of the practice guys that have to jump in drills, or you're doing the stats. And even back then, they're analytics now, but Coach Knight kept all types of stats. I mean, we had a crew of 4 or 5 people keeping stats live every single day. So immediately after practice, he'd have all the information he needed. And so you just gradually work your way up and try to find some niche in the program to add some value. I mean, whether it's helping run summer camps, there's a lot of different avenues at that time. But because the staffs were so small, you had a chance to do the work. Therefore, you'd be prepared when you left to move on because you had done it before.
And then to be able to take all that in and to use it, you knew you wanted to be a coach when you were a manager, right?
I did. Yeah. I wanted to be a high school coach when I went to Indiana.
And then, but what was it about his style of what he taught? Because the motion offense is something he basically created, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's
kind of
obviously
derivative.
He's obviously credited for changing the way the game is played offensively with the motion offense and mastering it and perfecting it in his way. And he did it in a lot of creative ways. I mean, I think a lot of it's like the Princeton offense. It's so well designed. A lot of the concepts are still used today at all levels of basketball. But it wasn't, like everything else, I think with great coaches and teachers like Coach Knight, it wasn't the tactics as much as the discipline, the preparation, the attention to detail. but most importantly, the intensity that everyone worked with every single day, I think, were the things that set Coach Knight and his program apart. I mean, every single day the standards are you're going to be your best, or it's the end of the basketball world. So, that's not an easy thing to live up to for those guys that played and everyone around the program.
When did you realize that, and it was maybe things that you didn't really think about though, in your coaching career, that, wow, this stuff is really resonating back? The 4 years I spent under doing what I was doing, those things are really coming out. And I maybe see them more today as a coach than I did before.
I think when you become a head coach, because as an assistant, you have a different role, you have different responsibilities, and you have a different thought process. Where when you become a head coach, then you have to see the bigger picture and see the end game more. And then you have to be able to articulate that and message it. So I think once I was able to get a head coaching job, I started referring back to what I learned a lot more than when I was an assistant.
And working in that capacity, other guys, the success, I've said this so many times, I wish I could compile a list of all the managers that were under Bob Knight, not just basketball, that have gone on to become basketball coaches. There are guys that are working, Lawrence Frank, I believe I have that name right.
Correct. Yeah. L. Frank.
Okay. Yeah. He was kind of the first one that really got the basketball managers noticed, I think. But the fact that you could go from being a manager to that level, to the level you're at, is pretty astonishing to me, to be honest with you. You took your team to a Final Four last year, and a year that was unbelievable year in college basketball. And again, congratulations on doing that. And you did it with a team that, it kind of reminds me of what Bob Knight did. He had a lot of times, he would have players that were not the most heralded or most known, but he still was able to find success, just like you did with your team last year.
Our team certainly had the feistiness level that Coach Knight would appreciate, and toughness and intensity. So yeah, I think that I'd heard from other people that he enjoyed watching the way our guys played. But yeah, those are the things that are the most important. And that's the way, like when Coach Knight walked into an arena, the level of intensity and eyes on him it was amazing. So just to be able to elevate the level of focus and intensity of everyone you're around is such a unique gift that he had. But yeah, I heard a stat that I was listening to something this morning, and he had one NBA All-Star his entire coaching career. And a few of the other Hall of Fame coaches maybe had 3 NBA All-Stars on one championship team or whatever the case. So he was always more about the team. He was able to find undervalued guys and get them to play, give up each other for the team and the role definition. And it was just a really, really unique way of he got everyone to be at their best. And I think if we could all do that as coaches, then we'd be winning in this thing.
Yeah, and of course, it's a sad time to lose him. We kind of knew that this day was coming, but most people still can't really prepare for that, because it's the loss of a lot of people's childhoods. When they're growing up with all the great things that were happening, whether even the adults, it's still a great time for Indiana fans. It's a loss for them, because that's such a historic run, and you were part of that. You were fortunate to be among that 87 team, and there had to be such a difference. I know you weren't around when he was coaching in the early 70s, when he instantly was able to get Indiana there, but I wonder how he was different from that early 70s to the late 80s, when he was still able to win at that same level.
Yeah, I'm sure that everything, things change for us by the year. So I can't imagine how much different the times were. But the standards were the same, the expectations were the same, and even being a part of it in such a small role, growing up as a kid in the state where everything revolved around Indiana basketball. I tell people that I remember our varsity schedule wouldn't be released until after the IU schedule was in place. because we didn't want to play on the same nights as IU for a number of reasons. And even
from Eastern Green High School, don't forget, local
yeah,
local guy.
Was pretty common everywhere, though, at least throughout Southern Indiana. But even just being as a kid where you're not allowed to stay up late unless Indiana's playing, and that 9:30 game against Michigan, that's the only time you'd be able to stay up past your bedtime, whatever the case. So, just really fond, great memories of just growing up and idolizing Coach Knight in the program more than anything else.
Did you hear from Bob Knight at all during your coaching tenure?
I have, yes. More so back years ago when I was getting in, but I've stayed in close contact with Pat Knight, and I still speak with Tim Knight's reached out a few times, but it wasn't as if we had this personal relationship. It was he allowed me to be around the program and contribute in a small way, and that I was very appreciative for that.
And Pat has been around a lot lately, trying to make sure his dad was taken care of. He's been back in town, works as a scout for the Pacers, but maintaining that relationship with the Knight family. How important has that been for you?
I mean, it's all relationships in coaching are important, and the one thing about Coach Knight and Pat, Pat was an assistant, is those guys have a legacy that everyone that they're around, if you were part of that program, you were better off for it. So once again, we'll forever be grateful. I know there's no way I would be where I am today without that experience. And I think as we all celebrate life, I mean, especially Coach Knight celebrating his life, that we're all just appreciative of what he was able to share and teach us, because, more than a coach, he was a teacher.
And I know that you took your own team to a Final Four last year, which again, amazing run, and I hope to see it again. You're also on and a big part of the 1987 National Championship team. Two different things, but both extraordinarily high moments. How did those moments compare?
Jim, actually, I was there in the 90s, the mid 90s.
Or 90s, rather. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That was actually a time whenever it was Coach Knight was considered being a little bit behind, finishing second or third in the Big Ten and whatnot. So, just obviously just the following it through the years. I mean, each year is so special, but especially when you have a group like that. And Todd Abernathy's on our staff. His dad, Tom, was on the 76 team, and just the bond he has with his teammates and coaches. I mean, that's one thing that our team will have, like all those Indiana teams that came back for reunions, just a special bond with each other.